Social Media Fire podcast is on the air. Talking all things social media, trends, news, celebrities, and more. It's all fair game. So let's go ahead and get the Social Media Fire started. Today's topics, we'll be talking about Twitter battles. We'll be talking about YouTube battles as well. That and a little bit more. But let's get it started with those Twitter battles. I don't want to say we've all had Twitter battles, but I think a good number of us have had our share of the Twitter battles with people here and there. You know, sometimes they're friendly ones. Sometimes they're not so friendly ones. Sometimes they're Twitter battles with our friends, our acquaintances, sometimes with our enemies. Sometimes we've had them with celebrities. We've had them with brands. We've had them with many different people. So when you think about a Twitter battle, you have to think about picking your spots very carefully. Because if you get into the wrong Twitter battle with the wrong person, you get yourself in some trouble. And you don't necessarily accomplish anything. And hopefully, if you've decided to get in a Twitter battle, if you feel that you must get in a Twitter battle, and hopefully you've at least been smart enough to pick one that's worth your time. And when you've picked one that's worth your time, hopefully you've been smart enough to do your research beforehand so you know what you're talking about. Because the one thing about social media, and particularly about Twitter, because Twitter is a little bit more anonymous than, say, Facebook, is that on Twitter people feel like they are empowered to go after you. They feel like Twitter is a playground where it's fair game to go after somebody. Whether you disagree with them vehemently, you disagree with them slightly, you disagree with them a little bit, it's all good. You know, you go after a person. It's sort of the cost of doing business, if you will, with Twitter. And you'll see those people that they want to draw you into a battle. They want to draw you into that fight. It's like the old saying, getting into a fight of this kind is like wrestling with a pig in the mud. You both get muddy and the pig likes it. Now, some of you out there may like getting muddy like the pig. Others of us, not so much so. But when you look at Twitter, I personally love Twitter. It's probably my favorite social media platform. I know a lot of people like Facebook. The numbers prove it. The revenue proves it. The number of users proves it. I'm one of those users. Of Facebook, that is. I'm a social media manager, so I do a lot of work on Facebook. I don't engage as much socially on Facebook. And apparently, if you look at the numbers and if you pay attention to what you hear, younger people are not engaging as much on Facebook as they used to. It certainly feels that way to me as a brand manager. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and the newest loved one, Snapchat, they have certainly gained some ground on Facebook in terms of maybe daily engagement. But you know, Facebook, having a Facebook account for a lot of young people is sort of like a rite of passage. It's kind of like getting a driver's license, having a Sweet 16 party, going out on the first date. Graduating, going to middle school, graduating, going to high school. graduating from high school, going to college. Just sort of one of those things you just do. But are people, the younger people, are they engaging as much? I'd say probably not as much. But on Twitter they are. On Instagram they are. And they sure as heck are on Snapchat. I've had to learn Snapchat. And it hasn't been easy, believe me. Snapchat is simplistic in some ways and a little bit more complex than maybe what you would expect in some other ways. But it's a cool platform. I'm not going to lie. You know, everybody had that controversy with Snapchat and how people thought that they could snap something, send it to a friend, snap something, put it on their story, and it would just disappear and be gone forever. And they found out that, it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't necessarily go away forever. Plus, people can screenshot your image and keep it forever if they so choose. You know, when you look at these Twitter battles, you've had some in the news recently. Leslie Jones, the actress, most currently, one of the stars of the remake of the Ghostbusters movie. She sort of got into it with a gay conservative. Let that sink in. A gay conservative blogger from the website Breitbart. This guy Milo Yiannopoulos, I guess that's his last name. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but took my shot at it. I'll accept the judgment of the world if I got it wrong. Looking at this article from the New Yorker, Leslie Jones, one of the stars of Ghostbusters, let it be known that she had become the target of racist and misogynist tweets by an army of trolls. On Monday, after retweeting many of the attacks, Jones announced that she was leaving the service for good, at which point Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey stepped in and asked her to get in touch with him. Shortly thereafter, the company announced that it had taken enforcement actions in quotes, against a number of accounts. One of those actions was the permanent suspension of Milo Yiannopoulos, a gay conservative blogger for the website Breitbart. Yiannopoulos had accumulated almost 400,000 Twitter followers with his harsh and unrelenting attacks on liberals, feminists, and anything he deemed politically correct. It says in parentheses, he had already been suspended twice by the site, but had been reinstated each time. It goes on, Twitter didn't say exactly what Yiannopoulos had done to violate its terms of service, but he had, among other things, retweeted screenshots purporting to be homophobic tweets from Jones, which were clearly fake. In the wake of the ban, the hashtag #FreeMilo became a trending topic on Twitter, and a myriad of conservatives lamented the company's supposed quashing of free speech. And of course, it started a debate about cyberbullying. People with large followings manipulating their followers to engage in a sort of warfare against an individual or individuals. So again, it gets back into that cyberbullying, something that's all too real in social media, and something that is an issue in social media. Maybe not so much with a celebrity the stature of a Leslie Jones, but what it can encourage amongst younger people is gang cyberbullying that can lead to some devastating effects in our society. We've all seen horror stories. I shouldn't say we all, but many of us have seen horror stories of individuals, particularly young people, who have been subjected to different types of cyberbullying, different degrees of cyberbullying, that have tried to harm themselves as a result, that have tried to kill themselves, that have been successful, unfortunately, in killing themselves. Social media can be used for such positives. It can be engaging. It can be a way to connect with people, like-minded people. It can be a way to have reasonable debates with people. It can be a way to express viewpoints, political and otherwise. It can be a way to just be heard. But it can also be a weapon. It can be a weapon that can be used against people. It can be a weapon that can be used against people who are not as able to defend themselves as other people are. And I think this is one of the reasons that you see a large company like Twitter, with a great deal of power and influence in social media, take the action that it took to ban an individual who had more than 400,000 followers. That's an extraordinary number of followers. Certainly a lot more than me. I have about 5,000 followers on my largest Twitter account. I have 3 personal Twitter accounts. One of them has... Actually, I should check that before I shoot off out there. Checking it right now. The internet's loading up a little bit slow. So more than 5,400 on one of my Twitter accounts. Another one is just over 1,000. One of them is just under 1,000. And so you can see with the person who was victimizing Leslie Jones, more than 400,000 followers. And many times with these people who follow people in social media, particularly people who follow celebrities in social media, they do so with a fanaticism. And it becomes almost cult-like in the way that they hang on every word of the celebrity that they follow. And so that gives the person who has drawn these followers through their own talent, through their own celebrity status, combination of both, maybe more, it gives them a great deal of power. Because in many cases, I'll give you a personal example. Several years ago, maybe a couple years ago, I was reading a tweet by an NFL commentator, a former NFL player, a very good NFL player back in his day. And he made a point. I don't remember what it is. It's not really that important. He made a point, and I corrected him. I don't normally do this with celebrities, but I corrected something that he said. And then he kind of came back with a sort of like, well, it's just kind of my interpretation of it. When I corrected him with fact, he came back with opinion or his interpretation. And of course, his fans just took his side. They didn't attack me, which I don't mind. If they would have, it would have been no big deal for me. I don't really care. But they all took his side, even though he was wrong. Not wrong like, oh my gosh, you did this totally bad. It was just an opinion he had that I felt incorrect, and I just corrected him. And we engaged, went back. He came back at me once, and I came back at him, and then I kind of let it go from there. But the point is, people followed him with a cult-like mentality, and they accepted what he said as fact, even though it wasn't fact. And then when he was corrected, and then he came back and said, basically, that's my opinion that it's this way. And he kind of said his opinion with force so that it almost becomes fact. And it did, in fact, become fact to some of his followers, even though they knew it wasn't fact. And this is the power that celebrities have via social media. They have fanatical people who are following them. They're indeed their fans who will bend over backwards to defend them, as Leslie Jones unfortunately found out. when you look at these battles that you see people have, it really is interesting. The I don't know if it's a precedent that Twitter set with the permanent suspension of the gay conservative blogger. But if it is a precedent, it's certainly a powerful statement made by the organization. And it's also noteworthy for this reason. You may think that you own your Twitter account, but you don't. They can take it away, snap of a finger. Poof, you can be gone just like that. A lot of people find that out on Facebook the hard way. Facebook will be very aggressive in suspending you for a variety of reasons. I've known people suspended for not using their real name. I've known people suspended for using words that could be considered bigoted, hateful, racist, sexist, homophobic. You get banned, you get put into, they call it Facebook jail. Some people do. Twitter, it's called Twitter jail. And it's a reminder that you don't own that. You sort of do, as long as you comply with their rules. But the minute that you don't comply with their rules, they can take out their belt and spank you. They can suspend you briefly and then reinstate you. Or they can outright ban you permanently. And apparently this guy, Milo, they suspended him previously and reinstated him, maybe more than once previously. They took away his verified account status. And for those of you who are familiar with the verified account status, that's a big deal to a lot of people. I don't know if it was to him or not, doesn't really matter, but it is to a lot of people. So him losing that, in the eyes of some people, that would be a big loss. A lot of people work really hard to get themselves in position to be able to have that verified status check mark. It's a big deal, believe me, to a lot of people. But you know, these battles, they are certainly not unique to Twitter. They can get pretty much as hot and heavy out there in YouTube. Now, I'm a big fan of YouTube. I said I was a big fan of Twitter, and that's true. But I am on YouTube, actually probably on YouTube even more than I'm on Twitter. And the great thing about YouTube is that YouTube, you can go on YouTube and you can find out how to do any number of things. I've used YouTube to look at reviews of different types of products. I've used YouTube to figure out how to do things. You know, being a homeowner, I've used YouTube to figure out how to fix at least a few different things around my house. Had a problem with my air conditioning unit, went to YouTube, figured out how to fix it. Saved myself probably a few $100. You call somebody to come out and repair it, I mean, you're going to drop at least a couple $100 just on labor. So again, saved myself a couple $100 right there. Did not use YouTube in another instance where I had somebody come out and fix it, and it did cost me a few $100. And then when I watched him do it, I said, you know what? I could have easily done that. It was getting my dryer fixed. But you know, when you look at the things that are popular on YouTube, brands are typically trying to figure out how they can best leverage YouTube to make the most out of it. And it's difficult. You can look at a brand and you can do great work, professional quality videos with all the slick little graphics and transitions and great quality picture and all that stuff. And then you can have a guy like me who gets a $50 program, doesn't put any graphics, no opening, no closing, not even any music, and you can get thousands of likes just being a commentator on a particular topic, a hot button topic. You don't have to be any kind of an expert. and yet you can get it done. There are YouTubers, YouTube commentators, YouTubers they call them. They get thousands of subscribers, tens of thousands of subscribers. And those who have been social media administrators for a YouTube fan page that doesn't involve any commentary, that doesn't talk about hot button topics, celebrities, or anything like that, it is painfully difficult sometimes to try to get subscribers. To the point that if you get 1,000 subscribers, you're practically dancing in the street and calling for a parade through the downtown of where your business is located. That's how tough it can be. That's how tough it can be to get views. You got to do some things pretty. Got to be pretty hot button, pretty controversial to some extent, or focus just on controversial topics, or focus on celebrity type topics, hot button issues. That's what it takes a lot of times to get YouTube views. I mean, it's that difficult. I love personally following YouTube commentators. And I make a point to not just follow and listen to people that I agree with, but to also challenge myself by listening to people, by watching commentators that I disagree with. And there are a lot of commentators that I disagree with. A lot more than I agree with, believe me. The same is probably true for a lot of other people. But it reminds me of when I look back to the days when I was a newspaper sports reporter. And I used to tell people when I was a columnist for a newspaper, I used to tell people the keys to writing a good column, a good sports column, or a good news column are the same. You find something that you're really passionate about, that you really want to talk about, and you make a strong point. You think about what that strong point's going to be. And then you think about what's the best counter argument to my strong point that somebody could possibly make. And then you figure out a way to defeat that in your column. If you can't figure out a way to make the case for the best possible counter argument and then defeat the best possible counter argument, then you probably shouldn't even write the column. You should probably scrap it and go do something else. But the point is that you have to challenge yourself, and that's why you listen to different people on YouTube. Because there are a lot of great YouTubers that are out there that are doing really good things. There are some out there maybe that are doing okay things, or some out there that are doing bad things. But the point is you listen to people on both sides of an issue, and then you draw your own conclusion. But don't follow people like a zombie. That goes back to what I was talking about with Twitter and how people can mobilize their followers to attack an individual. You don't want to be that troll. You don't want to be the pawn of a troll. You want to be able to form your own opinion based on the facts. Because if you can form your own strong opinion based on the facts, that's going to put you in a much better position intellectually, ethically, and morally. If you can't, you're just going to look weak. And some people don't mind that. Some people would rather just go with the flow, rather go with the popular opinion, go with somebody who charms them. Because it feels comfortable. It feels right. It feels good. And so they go with it. They groove with it. They flow with it. But YouTube is great, though. You listen to the commentators, and it's funny to sometimes you watch some of these commentators and they go back and forth at each other. Some people try to start Twitter beefs. Some people try to start YouTube beefs. And it's funny to watch the YouTubers go back and forth at each other. Sometimes it gets pretty nasty. I was looking at one today where Tommy Sotomayor was going at Boyce Watkins. Two YouTubers that watch quite a bit. Don't always agree with everything either of them say, but I do watch them quite a bit. They find them very interesting topics that some of them take up. Sometimes they make sense. Sometimes I don't agree with them. But it is fun to watch. That's the nature of social media. A lot of social media. A lot of what makes social media cool is the opinions that we see out there. And so it's important really to watch different types of people, to get a feel for different sides of an argument, to be able to watch or listen to someone's views, to be able to break it down, to see where they're coming from, to see if their opinion is based on logic, if it's based on the facts, or if it's based on emotion or perception or both. But you want to be able to get a feel for what the person is saying. Do they know what they're talking about? Or are they just shooting their mouth off with nothing of substance to really back it up? Because a lot of times that's what they do. You say something because it just feels right. It just sounds right. You see this particularly in political ideology. Conservatives look at conservative media outlets and they come up with a certain opinion on a certain topic. And you have your liberals, your progressives on the other side, and they do likewise. They look at progressive liberal sources, and then they base their opinions off of what they hear from those sources. It's like you sort of take your marching orders depending on what your political ideology is: conservative, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. I should say Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus progressive / liberal. But it's all good, though. Just a reminder, though, to people, be sure to get a diverse range of people that you listen to, that you follow. Shape your opinion the right way. Have a balanced viewpoint. Know what you're talking about. Have your facts together. Listen to people from different perspectives, and then draw an opinion based on the appropriateness of what is being said. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, this edition of the Social Media Fire podcast. Next episode, we'll be talking about issues like random Facebook friend requests and how you deal with those. People I've met in social media only, but haven't met in person, but maybe I want to meet in person. And how people connect in terms of their social media. Some people like to connect with you on Facebook, but not on Twitter. Some on Instagram, but not on Snapchat. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well on the next episode. So thank you for listening to the Social Media Fire podcast. Please download, share, like, and otherwise spread the word about Social Media Fire. Stay tuned for the next podcast of the Social Media Fire.